to run air conditioners, it costs, in this city, say, $13.50 for a ton of air conditioning. But it costs 25 cents to buy 33 gallons of water. 25 cents, $13.50. You can see the equation here is something we ought to look at with some care. So even the energy to produce the ton of air conditioning costs between 25 and 80, about 90 gallons of water. So the question is, can you use materials in your surroundings to change them? And the answer, even for an industrial wasteland, is yes. Water from that landscape goes into a swale system, stored below ground in this system here. And for about 50 cents to $1 a gallon, we're able to make something that looks like this. So the point is that either you have runoff or you have a natural landscape. This one's run by solar power. You could actually use the same kind of solar to produce ozone to increase water quality, not with all the particulates in it, obviously, to start with. But if you had relatively clear water, you can get to it from there. So the point is that there's opportunities everywhere, even industrial landscapes, to actually make a substantial difference, but it has to be locally done. The great thing about America, US, has been we have the land-grant colleges, which are locally attuned to ecological conditions and can work with local economies. We're doing the same thing here, Sustainable South Bronx here, their kind of green technology group, learning how to put in green technology, solar power, solar pumps, ecological systems. Either there's fish in that water, you have mosquito breeding, and the idea, and it's obviously a wetland because the ducks came. The point is we're paying for the diversity of life to support us. From a children's book, these humble creatures actually make porosity in the ground. It takes water down to the groundwater as opposed to across the surface and into pollutant systems. And what we're trying to accomplish and trying to demonstrate is that there's a capacity to incorporate the fairly exquisite filtration chemistry of natural systems into landscapes that support fish, support ducks, support plants, clean water, and basically get to a new paradigm. We are not outside of ecological systems. They run through us. They literally are part of our breath. You take a breath and 1/5 of it comes from some other kind of being, the plants namely. The only filters on the planet really are the best biochemists, the bacteria, the fungi, the plants. We're tertiary at best. And we have to learn to couple or recouple those with human-built systems. Huge problems. The arsenic and manganese problem mentioned in Bangladesh. There's issues altogether. It'd be great if we can actually use mountains to scrape the water out of the atmosphere, and that's another strategy to look at. But really, we have to look at scaling the filters that make our life possible and putting a border, a watershed, a protective boundary of nature around the landscapes and the water that supports all of us. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Well, reminding us to use nature as a teacher is certainly a good way to move towards the conclusion of this session and of this day. However, we do still have around 15 minutes for questions or comments. Yes, let's take a few at a time if there are. Could I get a showing of hands? Any chance? No? Okay.
In South Africa, the major water utility gave 50 liters of water free to people that needed it, and the system was still paid for itself. The inelasticity of the need for water for the bigger users is quite reliable. And this resulted in 1 million people being covered by access to clean water.
Yes.
Thank you. Richard Jordan, a former trustee of the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, and very good to see Paul after a long absence. Paul, the one thing you didn't mention, and of course there are many elements, the role of blue-green algae. Could you comment upon that, please?
Luckily, there's somebody technologically able here. Yeah, basically, we have all over the planet, there's an equilibrium between inputs and outputs. And luckily, some of the first organisms on the planet figured out how to both do a great deal of biochemistry, but also even fix nitrogen. So we have the elements of natural systems going back about 3.5 billion years, but they're still all around us. And the problem is the centralization, especially, of a great deal of our technology has undermined local knowledge base. The colleges and universities of Oxford and Cambridge were highly tuned to the beautiful temperate zone they're from, but we literally haven't retuned ourselves to the diversity of climates and landscapes and capacities around the planet, and it's about time we did that. So the blue-greens are a great example because they're, in a way, as Darwin noticed, similar all over the world, but the differences are what would be an exquisite way to learn how they're tied into local ecologies, and they are. Basically, every one of the major groups of them can actually fix nitrogen besides being able to capture sunlight, which I haven't seen a green person yet, but basically we can't do that, but they can.
Thank you. Thank you. I have a very quick questions for Earth Water Global. It's about affordability of your product. What I understand from your presentation, your potential buyer is government only. So when you say highly affordable compared to other alternatives, could you please contextualize what do you mean about, or what do you mean by this, or how do you contextualize about who would be your potential buyers or which country? Because when we say affordability and comparatively affordable, it creates a question of relativity as to which government you are talking about. And at the same time, when your buyers become government potentially, it requires some extra cost to send these products to the original consumers, i.e. Common people. So in that case, after addition of that value, the product of each unit will be increased. So giving due consideration on all those factors, can you please explain something more on affordability in terms of those governments that cannot afford to have access to water, fresh water, drinking water? Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think the key point when I say that we're affordable relative to alternatives, I'm mainly referring to what our service rate would be for a 25-year contract to the water authority of a country, which tends to be our customer. Okay, then that water authority will distribute the water to the end users, domestic users, industrial users, etc., at their own tariff schedule. Right. So that, as we all know, tariff rates are highly variable around the world, but the rates that we're able to offer to those clients tends to be significantly lower than what a desalination plant would offer, somewhere in the range of 10 to 50% lower, depending on the desalination plant and the technical attractiveness of the opportunity that we're developing. And also, the rates that we're able to offer are often lower than the blended tariff rate that the water authority will then sell the water for to their end users. Okay, so in many cases, those water authorities are able to make a profit on the water that we are providing them with when they sell it to their end users. Does that make sense?
An ongoing topic of discussion.
Yeah, if I could just say, one good counterpoint is always to look at New York, which was one of the first to build a water supply. And it's a number, but it's one worth hearing, because we have this 2,000 square mile watershed, so we can actually get water very inexpensively. And by that I mean exactly $2 per 100 cubic feet, 750 gallons. So you're not likely to see less expensive anywhere, but that's sort of a good measure of how planning at a very substantial regional scale got the price into a certain place, but it's also over a long period of time, and that price is going to go up. But it just, that will be, in a way, it's a good base number to have, because New York is one of the lower water pricings anywhere on Earth.
Yeah, just before that, you would also have to look at the comparative purchasing parity. When you're talking about Bangladesh with as a LDC, and you're looking at New York, which has a very high purchasing parity, your costing and my costing was never going to match.